Hello, and thanks for joining us today for this ITProTV webinar. Have a question? Use the GoToWebinar question box throughout the webinar, and we will answer as many as we can at the end. You will receive a link to a recording of the webinar delivered to your inbox. Now let's get started.
Hello and welcome to the ITProTV webinar series live from the ITProTV studios. I'm your moderator for today, Peter Van Rysdam, and I'm here with Patrick Lane and Adam Gordon, today's presenters. Patrick is the Director of Products for CompTIA. He oversees the cybersecurity workforce certs, including Security Plus, Pentest Plus, CYSA Plus, and CASP Plus. He's consulted for the White House for a nationwide multi-factor authentication awareness campaign, and he's authored several books, including Hack-Proofing Linux, a guide to open source security. Now, Adam is ITProTV's jack of all trades, teaching topics like CISSP, CASP+, Azure, and many others. He's also authored several books and has trained IT professionals around the globe. Now, if you like what you see today, you'll be happy to hear this is the format for all the ITProTV courses. So what exactly is ITProTV? It's a place to watch and learn. We offer an engaging way to learn and grow your career. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned IT pro, we've got the courses to meet your needs. CompTIA, Cisco, Linux, Apple, Microsoft, security, cloud, service management, and more. All online, all on demand. Check us out at itpro.tv. All right, we want to hear from you today, so you're encouraged to ask questions. And if you send in a question today, you'll be entered to win a CompTIA exam voucher, which means your next certification could be on us. Now, if you're watching on GoToWebinar, put your question in the questions panel. LinkedIn Live viewers, you can drop them in the chat. And if you're watching on the live stream, thanks for being a member, and you can put your questions in the chat as well. All right, Patrick and Adam, let's get started with today's topic, Explore Next Level CompTIA CyberSec Certs.
Great, PVR. Thank you so much. Hey, Patrick, good to see you. Welcome, everybody who's joining us. We're going to jump right in, and I just want to set the stage for us. Patrick is going to guide us through a bunch of really interesting information about the next level CompTIA security or CyberSec certs. But in order to get started, we really got to step back and probably think about what those entry-level certifications that many of you, and by extension, I'm sure a lot of IT professionals either currently hold or at least have thought about at some point in your career, whether you have the magic three that Patrick's going to start us out by talking about or not. But Patrick, I think it's probably a good place for us to jump in, because I know I get asked a lot by my students, by my customers as I'm spending time with them in the field, what's a good entry point for me or for my team for people that are starting out to gain those background skills and experience levels that they need to not only demonstrate to employers that they have the skills, but also to set themselves up to get onto one of these career tracks that we're going to be talking about. So where should we begin if we're thinking about really jumping in to information security?
I think it's always important to start with the core certs in the CompTIA career pathway. And so there's actually three certs, we call them the big three, that teach the core tasks, the core skills required by an IT professional. And those are A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus. Those are all expected to be done within the first 2 years of someone's career, and the exams are actually mapped out that way. So A+ teaches IT help desk skills, and you can actually get a job after taking A+. We have very high placement rates because IT help desk jobs are in demand right now. And it represents about 9 months into someone's career. So if you take A+, you're going to learn about hardware, software. You're going to learn about maintaining devices, including IoT devices, mobile devices that are hooked up to the internet right now. Also, we have Network Plus. That's one of the cores as well. And that actually teaches how the internet works. Oh, that's an excellent graphic you've just put up. Thank you. Look under core skills certifications. You'll see A+. Now we're talking about Network Plus. Network Plus also core cert teaches the basics of networking so that you know how the engine of the internet works. Because if you really want to be good at cybersecurity and IT in general, the more you know about how the network functions, the better you will be. And then Security Plus, that is an entry-level cybersecurity certification. And that maps out at about the 2-year point in someone's career. Notice Security Plus comes after some of those basic skills in A+ and Network Plus, because Security Plus and any cybersecurity job requires some experience. It requires oftentimes coming from the infrastructure side of things to go into cybersecurity. Also, you'll notice ITF there. ITF is Internet tech. I think it's IT fundamentals. Yes, information technology fundamentals, ITF plus. That's really a survey course. It'll teach you a little bit about all the different areas of IT. There's not a specific exam that you would take that you'd have to renew. It's really you take that exam and you learn about all the different jobs in IT, and so it's a really good place to start. And that's why you'll find it.
And so, Patrick, I know that as we think about the pathway, right, we could see, that entry ramp as you were talking about, and I'm proud to say I have all of those credentials right on the entry ramp. But I also see that there's two ways we can go once we get past Security Plus. If we're just following the logic of the graphic, we can move to the upper area of the slide, and we would see that we go into things like Linux Plus, Cloud Plus, Server Plus, right? I know we're not going to speak about those credentials in this presentation, but certainly important to at least acknowledge that they're there and that they do form a very good basis for skills that we're going to be talking about with CYSA Plus, Pen Test Plus, and of course CASP Plus. But when we look at the graphic, we see at the lower right-hand side that we can move into those areas. And those areas are really structured more around not just hands-on specific skill sets that we have to validate through doing, as well as multiple choice questions on all of the exams that we have to show our knowledge through, but also really have specific experience bars and a specific focus, whether it's a red team, a blue team, or maybe a higher level blend of the two. So what's the best place for us to jump in as we begin to talk about some of this?
That's a great question because you'll notice Security Plus is right in the middle of the cybersecurity career pathway, right in the middle of the career pathway. It's really a flagship certification and it serves as a springboard into a lot of different careers. Now, CompTIA, as you can see, we cover infrastructure. So you can go into, the cloud, you can go into server, data centers, Linux. But we also have a cybersecurity track, and that's the second track that you'd mentioned there. And that does include the next level of cybersecurity skills needed in someone's career after Security Plus. And so what you'll find is Pen Test Plus and CySA Plus at the 3 to 4 year level. Now, remind you, Security Plus represents 2 years. Pen Test Plus and CySA Plus represent 3 to 4 years. And so if you look at taking you're going on the lower track here, but it actually pays higher salaries. You'll see Pen Test and CySA Plus. Now, this is a very important concept for you to know because Pen Test Plus is what has traditionally been called a red team certification. And so it actually teaches offense. It teaches penetration testing and also vulnerability analysis, as well as vulnerability management. And so it's really about finding the vulnerabilities by attacking your own network, finding those vulnerabilities or weaknesses, and fixing or mitigating them before the enemy finds them and exploits them. And so it makes a whole lot of sense. It's like dressing someone up to be a bank robber, sending them into the bank, seeing if they can rob the bank. If they rob the bank, then you say, "Oh, I guess we're gonna, we need to review our security protocols and figure out, how they got the password so easily to open the safe," for example. So that's exactly what pen testing is like. And so um, with pen testing, not only do you have to do the hacking, the attacking, but you need to then fix or provide solutions for mitigating that problem. And if you can't mitigate or fix the problem, maintaining it, because sometimes we have to live with vulnerabilities on our network, and then we have to figure out, okay, how are we going to mitigate that? Such as, are we going to segment it and put it on another network, for example, so that if it gets infected, it's not infecting all of our other high value targets. So those are some ideas around that. Then we look at the blue team, and that's the defensive team, and that's covered by CYSA Plus. And CYSA Plus is actually the cybersecurity analyst certification, and it's covering the security analyst job role. And Pen Test Plus, as I just mentioned, is covering the pen testing job role. Then after you take, oh, by the way, just one more thing about blue team. I said blue team is defensive. There's often cybersecurity competitions, and it's an excellent way to teach students where you can actually have the red team, the pen testers, attacking the blue team security analysts. And from that, you can actually work together as purple team and improve your overall network's resiliency against the next attack. It'll make your company more mature from a cybersecurity aspect. Then, after this red team, blue team, purple team, we move into the advanced level certs, and that's CASP plus, and we call that. It's also called CASP plus, but it stands for the CompTIA Advanced Security Practitioner exam. And that exam we actually created in conjunction with the U.S. Navy cybersecurity there in Pensacola, and it was created essentially to assess their advanced cybersecurity workers who are doing security engineering work, senior security engineering work, to actually look at the entire enterprise. And when looking at the enterprise, being able to secure that enterprise in a standard fashion across the organization, so that you can better prove your cybersecurity maturity. And so that task in itself is extremely important. And we find that security architecture and senior security engineers also making more money than the other cybersecurity jobs. It's really at the top of the food chain. CAS Plus is more of a it's good with you have experience, and it is a it would be a capstone certification to your
That's great.
cybersecurity work at CompTIA.
And so, Patrick, I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize. But great overview, right, of the three that we're going to look at. But I know we've got probably some detail we want to put up on screen and share as we walk through each of these, and also probably quickly just orient everybody with a good summary of all the information you've given us around each of these. So I'm thinking maybe we could start with Pen Test Plus, the red team approach, a little bit of the offensive side of how we do things. And we can put up the graphic and information we have for that, and we can run through all the information you gave us and quickly point out the highlights as we're talking. So if we could get Patrick's first graphic up on screen, that would be great.
It's great. And I've already mentioned about Pen Test Plus in that you said, it's a red team certification. And it is focusing on pen testing and vulnerability assessment and management. So if you see here, if you look at the slide, you'll see the logo for Pen Test Plus here from CompTIA. And it says it's a vendor neutral, internationally targeted validation of intermediate level penetration testing knowledge and skills. So if you look at the exam objectives, mind you, every single CompTIA certification originates from these exam objectives, and you can download them from our product web pages at CompTIA.org. These exam objectives are really just a listing of the day-to-day jobs that someone in this job role would do. So the exam objectives are the perfect way to study for the exam, as well as the multitude of learning products out there. And so if you look at the main tasks of Pen Test Plus, they're listed here on those bullet points in the middle. You're planning and scoping a penetration testing engagement, understanding the legal and compliance requirements as well. This is very important. As you know, pen testing is one of the few jobs that could probably get you thrown in jail if you don't make sure you have permission, because you need to make sure that you're an authorized hacker, not an unauthorized hacker, because many will go into an organization, perhaps not get permission for certain segments on the network, and perhaps they end up doing scans there. You can actually be penalized for that. And in some cases, it will probably be a compliance a citation. And so there are many things that you have to be aware of there. And that's why we cover it. And we also talk about ethical hacking now. There's a lot about ethical hacking. And so another thing, notice you're going to be performing vulnerability scanning and penetration testing using tools and techniques. This is important because for now we have a broader attack surface. In the old days, oh, by the way, did you know that pen testing, I say the old days because there's recorded use of the Air Force using pen testing in 1971. So pen testing has been around for a long time. A lot of people think, oh, it's new. No, it's been around forever. There's some newer automation techniques and newer best practices, absolutely. But pen testing's been around for a while, and we're now seeing some great improvements in the tools. And then at the end, not only have you pen tested and done some automation techniques, but you're now producing a written report. You're going to talk about the proposed remediations. And then you also are going to have to be part of a team that communicates this information. What you found, what are the vulnerabilities? How are you going to fix them? You're probably going to be working within that larger IT team in that process.
Right. So it seems like we have a really good overview of the skills here, and we understand, or at least I think we have a good overview of the skills, but we have a good idea of what we're going to do. But let's talk maybe a little bit about the domains and the job roles specifically that are associated on the Pen Test Plus exam. And then I know you also wanted to mention not only the salary capability, the potential employability for someone who pursues and successfully achieves Pen Test Plus as a certification in the red team area. But then we have a kind of a great way to bring it all together with a summary that's going to show us all the pertinent information for the exam. So maybe we can jump in and just talk a little bit about what the job role and the specific domains on the exam look like as they map together.
Yes, it's important to look at the job roles. The two primary job roles for pen testers are one, penetration tester, but number two, security consultant. It's very important to understand that a lot of the companies that provide pen testing are smaller companies. Perhaps they're managed service providers that do pen testing for multiple companies. But consultants are often hired. So you may be hired by an enterprise to do the pen testing. You'll just go in and do a several week engagement, and then you're done. And you might go to another company, do their pen testing tasks, provide the recommendations, then you're done. And so you could actually be a security consultant doing one-off jobs, and there's plenty of people that do it. And you can also work at an MSP. Shout out to Trevor Smith, and he does a lot of MSP work with dozens of companies. And so there's a lot of work to be done in pen testing. Also, secondary job roles. This is really important to stress the attack surface and the expanding attack surface. So for secondary job roles, we see cloud penetration testing, cloud.
Those clown penetration testers get you every time, don't they?
They really do. Those darned clown penetration testers. I love it. Don't be a clown. Make sure you understand the legal requirements before your next hack. Also, we have network and security specialists. We have web app penetration testers, information security engineers, a security analyst. You see, there's a lot of different IT job roles that use pen testing, because pen testing is really testing anything. Software developers are going to test their software development in their web apps, for example. Every web app has to be tested. In the past, we haven't done a very good job of that. But actually automated tools that can essentially go in and try to find vulnerabilities in web apps are getting a little better. In the past, you could only get maybe a cross-site scripting or a SQL injections were some of the few things that web app detectors could find, but now there's a lot more advanced tools that can go deeper into the code to find vulnerabilities, and we hope that continues to improve.
Patrick,
And then
as
on
I
the right
look,
is just, oh yes.
go ahead. I was going to say, as I look at the listing of the domains and the breakdown on the right, as you were about to point out, we talked a bit about this before the presentation, that when we look at the hands-on component, you get over 50% of the hands-on capabilities and the thought process around where we're going to have to spend time really showing our skills in the exam by looking at the 30% and the 22% respectively in the middle tier of the exam objectives, right? And so it's very clear, and it should be clear to all of you listening to us, that this is not just an exam that involves multiple choice answers. You're going to be asked to do things and to actually put that knowledge that Patrick's been talking about to use. Whether you're using that first or second tier job role experience, it is a blend, and it's important to understand it's not going to be, as Patrick pointed out, from any one area. And you're going to have to demonstrate across all three of these exams capability and knowledge, because you can answer questions, but capability and skills in the application of that knowledge by doing. And these exams are really setting you up to show that to an employer, but also are really the path to the future. most certification vendors, and CompTIA has been a leader in this area as a result of their approach, taking these exams and turning them into experiential component capabilities for you to show what you can do, really showing us the path to the future. Many certification vendors are moving in this direction. So it's important to see that, important to know that. And as potential candidates, it's important for you to be thinking about that as you look at how you're going to apply your knowledge. All right, so Patrick, we definitely got a good understanding of the skill set. We got a great understanding of the job roles and how they map to the domains. I know there's some information on salary and potential employability you want to share with us. And then I know there's a wrap up we're going to do for each one of these certifications as we kind of transition to the next one. So let's talk a bit about how you make money doing this. And let's talk about what employability looks like for a Pen Test Plus candidate, somebody who takes the exam and successfully holds that credential.
Okay, good. If we can show the next two slides, I can actually cover that information, because the next slide I was going to show you just have some of the Bureau of Labor Statistics data. And so what you're going to see is that basically penetration testing, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics in the US, is considered part of the information security analyst job role. It's considered about a third of that job role, interestingly enough. It doesn't have its own selected entry at the BLS. There's been rumors that they may add it, in fact, from last year, but hasn't happened yet. So anyhow, if you look at the salary, it's just over 100,000, and there's going to be a lot of employability available. Right now there's over 100,000 jobs, and they expect over 30% growth, and that's just phenomenal, phenomenal. And then if we look at cyberseek.org, that is a it's a website that CompTIA has partnered with the U.S. NIST, and so with NIST, we created this site to break down those job roles to make it easier for the government and municipals in local governments and states and such to get information about their local employability statistics. And so if you look at that, we did break it into penetration testing as it should be. And that, clocked in just a little more than $100,000 as well. If you look at jobs, though, only being a pen tester full time, there's about 14,000 of them. If you look at security consultant, though, that number just balloons. And I don't even have that number because security consultant is very broad. It's difficult to track. But right now, there's over 300,000 cybersecurity jobs available in the United States alone this month. So right now, you've got 300,000 jobs available to you to apply for in cybersecurity. You'll want to see which ones make pen testing skills.
All right. So
so
how does somebody bring all this together, get ready to take the exam? What are the 5 W's and the H, essentially, right? All the pertinent information about what a candidate needs to know to actually get ready for the exam. Where do they go? What the exam code is, how much it costs, how long it is, all the questions everybody's always asking you about an exam. Do you have some information for us on that?
I do. The next slide will show the different ways that the exam can be taken. Our exams are taken at Pearson VUE testing centers traditionally, but now they're also available at OnView. So you can take our exams online, and that was a change that happened during COVID. It was one of the drastic changes CompTIA had to do, was begin offering the exams online. So they're a lot easier to take nowadays. I want to just specify that the current version out there is called PT0 001. That's the exam code. So if you go to Pearson VUE, that's the code you will find when you look up, CompTIA Pen Test Plus. But we have a new version, 002. So it's PT002 that's coming out in late October. And so when that's released, it just has an update, some newer best practices. But both exams are approved by the Department of Defense for the 8570. So you can take either exam and it's valid for that. Also, there's a 3-year requirement for all of these exams I'm talking about today. You have to renew after 3 years. And then also one thing very important that Adam was talking about is the exam has performance-based questions and multiple choice-based questions. We started doing this about 10 years ago because we realized cybersecurity, you have to have hands-on skills. So when you go in to take the test, you're actually going to presented with strictly run simulations to ensure you can do basic tasks, and in this case, intermediate level tasks required for pen testers. And then you're also, though, going to have to do multiple choice questions to make sure you understand, the legal compliances and such, and compliance issues, and then the different steps. There's so many frameworks in pen testing. There's a great deal to know, and a lot of tools
There,
to know as well.
there definitely is. And the good news is we can certainly help you out with that here at IT Pro TV. You've got a great set of courses available to you that covers all of the CompTIA certifications Patrick and I are talking about today. And there'll be more about how you can access that stuff as we wrap up at the end of our conversation. All right, so Patrick, we've covered the red team area, I think, really well. Really exciting and engaging conversation. I know many people are asking about Pen Test Plus. I speak to a lot of people about it, and they're always excited to hear that the course, rather the exam, continues to evolve and obviously is positioned as successfully as you pointed out it is with regards to employability. But there's a blue team conversation we have to have as well. It's not just red, right? It is about red and blue. And so when we think about the blue team side, you mentioned that CYSA or CISA Plus is going to be that exam and that credential. It's going to really position us as a cybersecurity analyst, somebody who's probably working in a SOC more often than not, a security operations center, and looking to defend the network against the activities that, to be clear, red teamers will engage in ethically and with permission, as you pointed out, but will still engage in order to help us understand how to partner to defend that network. And it's important to see that linkage, that both of these skills and both of these certifications really work hand in hand. But you have to get one or both in order to claim that title. So how do we jump in and talk about CYSA Plus? Where do we begin speaking and thinking about what the blue team certification represents?
A great place to talk about it is a great place to start is just considering that that you are the defense, and that you are being attacked at all times, and you essentially have to find anomalies in your network, in your actual network, and on all your systems. You have to find anomalies in your data that may indicate bad behavior. And these are often called anomalies. And it's one of the basic intrusion detection mechanisms that we use, in that you are essentially filtering data in your network and on your systems at all times, monitoring data, usually through log files. And you're trying to find anomalies in the data that indicates bad behavior. This is done through multiple tools. I mentioned an intrusion detection system, um, an intrusion prevention system, but also other SIMs, their security information and event management systems as well. There's a lot of different tools here that help with defense, and CISA Plus covers a great deal of them. And so you have to be able to find these anomalies. Then once you find these anomalies, you have to respond to them. So now you have realized your systems are under attack. Possibly you got the information through threat intelligence. And so you then check to see, oh, yes, we didn't install that um, Microsoft patch, and therefore the server has been infected. And so then what you would have to do is say, okay, well, how, now that we've realized, we have found that this system has been attacked, how are we going to fix it? And so you might realize, oh, like earlier, network segmentation works really great. And so maybe you're just going to put it on another segment until you can figure out what's wrong with it. It's almost like what the old heuristic approach to viruses, where you kind of put it in a sandbox and see what happens to it. It's fascinating.
All right, so
So
let's
anyway,
let's maybe take a look at the skill sets that you're kind of rattling off for us and talking about with regards to CYSA Plus. I know you have a screen capture for that, a slide. And then I know we also want to take probably the same format approach. You want to take a look at the mapping to the domains, and then quickly talk about employability and do the wrap-up slide for CYSA so people know where they can access the exam. So maybe we can quickly take a look at the rundown on the skill sets that you were just mentioning.
yeah, if you can put up the slide then, because here are the basic slides. Once again, I mean, here's the basic skills. Once again, it's a vendor neutral. Um, And it's going to determine an IT pro's ability to proactively defend and continuously improve the security of an organization. Proactively defend is very important because you actually have to go out and find the bad behavior. It's not necessarily going to come to you in a security alert. But it allows you to leverage intelligence and threat detection techniques, analyze and interpret data, identify and address vulnerabilities that suggest preventive measures, and effectively respond to and recover from incidents. So the incident response aspect is a key to a security analyst.
All right. And then let's take a look, if we can, at the mapping for the job role specific to the domains and how they kind of come together for us the way we did with Pen Test Plus.
Yes, this is very eye-opening. As you can imagine, the key job title is security analyst. There's a lot of variations of that job. When it's a tier two SOC analyst, security monitoring, anyone who's really doing continuous security monitoring is ultimately a security analyst. But it's really important to notice a lot of the jobs that use these skills. Threat intelligence analyst, that's someone who just all they do all day long is monitor the various sites like the CSERT. It's called OSINT, and this intelligence that you're going to be accessing is going to help you determine where the potential threats on your network, so you know where to start looking. That's very important. um, but also you have to understand, you have to be able to also not only just pretend your network, but protect your network, but also protect your applications. And web apps and applications now introduce probably most of the errors. Sorry, probably introduce most of the errors on our networks nowadays. And then lastly, compliance analyst, and then threat hunter. Threat hunter is important because that's someone who actually looks outside of your SOC, where your security analysts are, and they're trying to find any kind of threat to your company that might be outside of what the security operations center is currently monitoring.
Right, so a really good rundown on the job titles, how they're going to play into the exam objectives, and of course the defining characteristics of the domains. Let's talk a bit about employability, because I know there's a lot of capability that exists in terms of the job market for security professionals in general. But how does it look specific for somebody who's holding a CISA plus credential? What does the employability and the salary capability look like?
Yes, as I mentioned before, pen testing with the Bureau of Labor Statistics is the same as a security analyst. So you're looking at over 100,000, and there's over 100,000 a year, and there's over 100,000 jobs. This, of course, being in the United States. Also, much faster growth, over 30%. One of the things that's really important for you to understand, though, is that hiring managers that we have interviewed, 80% of them, 8 in 10, are looking at IT security certs for making the hire. So if you have these two certifications, employers, 80% of them, will be looking at IT certs as a way, as a mechanism to make you more attractive candidate for the job. And that's very important. So I wanted to make sure that was posted.
All right, very good, Patrick. So let's do a quick wrap up on the CYSA Plus. I know you've got your overview for us there with the five W's and the H, and then we have to move through CAS Plus because we've got about 5 minutes left before we have to start taking questions. So if we could do a quick wrap up on CISA Plus, where do we go and how do we access the exam?
You bet. I already mentioned the basics. Go to Pearson View, and it's available online and on ground. Um, Probably the most important thing for you to understand is the current version right now is CS0002. That's been available for about a year. It includes the latest skills. But also this time I want to focus on the recommended experience, similar to Pentest Plus, where you're looking at, you're really looking at a snapshot in time at about the 3 to 4 year level. And it recommends the core certs as a prerequisite, because for all these cybersecurity certs, as I mentioned, there is prerequisite knowledge needed.
All right, very good. Appreciate you wrapping that up for us. Let's go right into CASP or CAS Plus. I know everybody's really excited about this as well. It's the highest level, requires the most in terms of experience, 10 years of experience cumulatively. And we have only a few minutes left to talk about it. So Patrick, if we can move right into the job roles that are going to be mapping rather the skill sets. I apologize. Let's talk about the skill sets first, and we'll move right to the job roles that are mapping to it. But the first graphic that has all the skills associated with the exam, if we could go through that, that'll be great.
Excellent. Yes. So, CompTIA Advanced Security Practitioner, CASP Plus, as I mentioned, is similar to a capstone certification in cybersecurity. It's advanced level, focuses on security architect and senior security engineer job roles, charged with leading and improving an enterprise's cybersecurity readiness. One of the key areas here to understand is this concept of cybersecurity maturity. When we talked to CISOs, most of them said they want to hire a security engineer or a security architect who can come in, assess their organization, and then give them the recommendations for making the enterprise network more secure. And that often includes trying to comply to a specific regulation, such as PCI DSS or maybe NIST.
All right. So we've got some general idea about what our, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, you can, and then security architecture, is generally that job is one where you can actually look at an enterprise organization and provide cybersecurity solutions. We found that only 5% of folders on the average enterprise is properly encrypted, and that is because of only 5% of companies we've interviewed really have an encryption standard across the company. That makes it impossible to determine a complete maturity skill if you don't know how your folders are encrypted across the organization. So this is critical, and it's a skill that's needed. And every CISO we talked to said that they need to hire a security architect who can help with them with those tasks. But basically, if you're a security, you can architect, you can engineer, you can integrate and implement secure solutions across complex environments to support a resilient enterprise. Because your ultimate goal is to try to bring the cybersecurity maturity of a company to a higher level so that hopefully you can get jobs, because eventually we're all going to be under some kind of cybersecurity maturity model where we have to prove how secure we are on some kind of a metric, whether it be 0 to 5 or 0 to 100. If you can't prove how cyber secure your organization is, no one will want to do business with you.
Very good point. And certainly architects are well positioned to help us to do that. So we've talked a bit about the skill sets. I kind of really also mentioned the job roles already and how they would map. So let's move on to talk a little bit about the employability and the salary capacity for someone that holds the CASP or CAS Plus certification. So what is employability? What are salary ranges going to look like for somebody who's certified here before we wrap up?
The Bureau of Labor Statistics, they have not caught up yet to the these job roles. So you have to look at actually CyberSec, and when you look at CyberSec on the right hand side, you'll see the pay raise is higher. It's up around 133 average. There's fewer jobs available because they pay so well. And then cybersecurity engineer makes more than the penetration tester or security analyst as well, about 106. There's about 61,000 jobs. So this is a great deal of jobs if you consider how few cybersecurity experts there are in the US. So these pay more, and there's a lot of jobs available.
Really good, really encouraging to know, and really good to see that. And then finally, I know we have something specific we want to talk about as we wrap up with CAS Plus on the summary chart that you provided for us, specifically when the new CAS Plus exam objectives are going to go live. And I know you wanted to point out that they're going to be aligned more or less to Pen Test Plus in October of this year. So maybe we could take a look quickly at our wrap-up slide for that. And then I know we're going to open it up and start hearing from our audience about questions. And there are a bunch of them. A lot of people want to ask us a lot of stuff. So let's wrap up on just summarizing what's going on with CAS Plus and how it's going to be positioned for the new exam when it rolls out. And we'll move into questions.
Great. Yes, to clarify, the new version of CASP Plus, it's going to be the 004 version. It's coming out at the beginning of October. So it got pushed back about 2 months due to a delay in the exam dev process. So it's coming out at the beginning of October. Then Pen Test Plus is the new version is coming out at the end. You can still take the current version 003. It's available now, and it's still approved by the DoD. So you can take either version; it will still be approved. Also, it's got performance based on multiple choice questions, so you're going to have hands-on skills. The objectives point out the various applications and programs that would be used. And then lastly is experience. You'll see it recommends, or just recommends, not required, the skills that are included previously in the cybersecurity career pathway.
All right, really great to see that, and good to note that it's going to potentially, it will be in October. For those of you that may have heard that it was going to be in August, it is definitely going to be in October. You heard it here. I heard it from the gentleman who can definitely definitively tell us that. All right, Patrick, thank you so much. It's been a really interesting, high-level discussion and overview of where we stand with the next generation cybersecurity certs from CompTIA, but we're not done because we're going to start taking some of your questions. I know a lot of you want to ask Patrick all sorts of things about what he's been talking about, whether renewable certifications are indeed going to require CEs, for instance, continuing education units, and or how do we do that? What's that 3-year cycle, as well as things like the hands-on components. 8570 compliance took a sneak peek at the question list. There's a lot of interesting stuff in there, Patrick. So we're going to jump in and get started here. But before we do, let's just make sure that we are all set to go. Patrick, I know you are, I know I am, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that we're going to hear, there he is, we're going to hear from our moderator, Peter, before we get started with questions formally, and then we're going to go ahead and roll right into our questions. So PVR, take it away.
Yeah, and we do have a lot of questions that have come in, and there's also some great chat going on in the on-air page. So definitely you can watch over there in the future, and we've even got guys like Trevor that are answering a lot of the questions for us in there, which is really helpful. But let's get to our first one, which comes from the on-air page, and Michael asks, which, if any, of these certs are renewable with continuing education credits?
That's Patrick. That definitely sounds like one for you.
Yes. The certs I've spoken about today, A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, which are the cores, and then the advanced intermediate certs, which are Pen Test Plus, CYSA Plus, and CASP Plus. Those all have to be renewed 3 years. And the reason is because they're ANSI ISO 17024 approved, which requires a continuing education unit or continuing education component to the certifications. So that means you have to renew them every 3 years. And the reason is to stay more up to date on technology. That rule is set in place so that exams don't fall behind in their ability to teach current skills. So it's impressive. But all of those require a renewal system. And if you go to CompTIA, we have a continuing education section on our website that will provide to you instructions on the process and what you have to do to prove it, because you have to get like an X number of credits every 3 years. And it will
actually
vary depending on
specifically, if I could just jump in, Patrick, for a second, because I actually have to do this for my CAS Plus credential, for instance. So it is certainly exactly as Patrick describes. You actually report those, and there's a self-reporting process. So it is important, as Patrick suggested, for you to pay attention to the guidance. The portal is very simple and easy to navigate once you get certified and get connected, but you report yearly, and there is a 3-year roll-up for a cumulative effect for your CEUs that you need over the course of the 3-year cycle. So keep in mind, it's not just that you do it right at the end. You're not supposed to be rushing to do it all. You need to do it sequentially, essentially, at so much every year. Hypothetically, if it's 60 for the 3-year cycle, you should, and CompTIA recommends, you should be doing approximately 20 CEUs a year over that 3-year cycle, just to keep that in mind. All right, so Patrick, I think we've got another question teed up. And this one, if I'm not mistaken, is really going to speak to the idea of, what is that background level of either experience or perhaps other certification areas that I might want to be focusing on in order to bring that knowledge forward and get ready for exams. So specifically, from Javier, right, in Florida, do I need former experience to take a certification exam is what he's asking. And I get this a lot from students, and I'm sure you do as well. What do you recommend for somebody who's saying, do I really need that experience? Can I jump right in? What's the best path?
Yeah, I've been learning a lot from my friends on LinkedIn from that. Because what I have found is a lot of cybersecurity pros, if they don't get an internship, if they don't get it, an apprenticeship, if they, don't have an entry level job in it, how do you get experience? And so what I find is that the cybersecurity challenges are being recognized by employers as experience. And so it will help you. And if you can go out and do hackathons, if you can go out and do any kind of red team, blue team cybersecurity exercises, you will gain experience. So I've seen, ITProTV. I think you support a lot of events, and CompTIA certainly does. We work with the National Cyber League that works with high schools, community colleges, and things, trying to do cyber events there to get our students to go so they can then get some of this experience that you're talking about. It will help you so much if you do these challenges and these competitions more than you would ever know.
That's very
Um,
helpful to know. And very helpful to know. I was just going to say, and it's an important thought process you're sharing with regards to broadening the idea behind where we can find that experience, right? CTFs, capture the flags, or pennant races, all the different things you may hear about. All of them are really helpful, but don't overlook the fact you can also be working on your own as well as be a member of a team. There are competitions, as Patrick suggested, but there's also ways for you to work on your own, things like Try Hack Me, and a variety of sites that are hosting that HackerOne, sites like that would also give you a lot of experience in hands-on sandbox environments. Whether you choose to compete or not is obviously another level above that. All right, very good. So PVR, we have another question teed up for Patrick.
Yep, we sure do. Rahul from the on-air page asks, which domain carries the most weight considering there are only 5 domains in the CASP Plus exam?
Oh, okay. Well, for that one, if we can pop up the slide of the exam, if possible. Okay, now percentage of exam. Can we zoom in on that thing and take a quick look at the percentages? I did break it down into those. All right, so you can see the highest level of exam questions you're going to find are going to be in security operations. Now, mind you, when you are someone at the level of a security architect or a senior security engineer, you're often going to be, working with the SOC, and you may be, leading some of them depending on what tasks you have to do at the time, to, upgrade your network, to whatever security solutions you're working on. But the security operations, the day-to-day operations of the incident response center, for example, those are key, and making sure that they're running, make sure that they are actually, bringing in all the correct data into a sim. If you're running a sim out of your SOC, you have to. Wow, that was a quite an enjoyable
Sim out
acronym.
of your sock. That was a good one.
Thank you. And so what that means is that you have to fully understand how the SOC operates, because you may find that you need to upgrade or bring in, maybe you've done a new company acquisition and you need to bring in a new company. So you're going to have to figure out, how are you going to access their information? How are you going to install your agents? How are you going to get those logs into one of your systems so that you can analyze the data. Those are the types of things that a security architect and senior security engineer would be working on, actually creating and building those solutions.
All right, very good.
Uh,
It's thank you for highlighting that. I was just going to say it's good to see the ability to link through that level of detail, because it's an interesting question, but sometimes I find, Patrick, it's hard just to look at the domain map and see that number, right? 30%, 22%. You get a raw feel for the idea of how many questions by weight may get asked, but it's not always easy to understand the importance of those skills in relation to other domains. So it's good that you're helping us to understand that. It's PVR, correct me if I'm wrong. We've got an interesting question teed up around how these particular certifications may be good for the cloud. What exactly is it that Michael from LinkedIn wants us to answer?
Exactly. Yeah, Michael, thank you for joining us on LinkedIn Live. And he wants to know, are these certifications a good tool for cloud engineers to have?
yes, they are. In fact, these recent upgrades that we're doing right now, the old version did, but the new versions especially, they cover hybrid environments. What means every skill you learn, you're going to learn how it would work on prem, you're going to work how it would work in the cloud. Because our research came in, and it's something we would all expect. But 80% of all 80% of all IT pros that we surveyed are working in hybrid environments right now. So to your question, we're covering cloud the whole way through CAS Plus, and we're covering it the whole way through Security Plus, Pentest Plus, and CISA Plus, because that's the environment our IT pros are currently working in, and our exams are really a snapshot of that environment. And then we're also focusing a whole lot more on web apps in general, as the cloud has produced so many web apps that are so insecure.
Right. You really can't do cloud today without focusing on web apps. Can't do cloud security without being aware of the liability associated with web applications. So it's really important to hear that, but also great to see that that continuous thread runs through all the certifications. So it is important as a baseline for you if you're working in cloud, as an engineer, as an administrator, as an architect, whatever you may be doing, to think about one or more, and perhaps the trinity, right? The trifecta of these certifications brought together, because they really do give you that edge. So it's really good to hear that, Patrick, and I think good for everybody to know that. All right, PVR, I believe we have another question teed up specifically. I'm interested to hear Patrick's answer on this one about one of the components potentially of what's in Pentest Plus.
Yes, exactly. Samarth in India asks, does Pentest Plus include IoT pen testing, so the Internet of Things?
Yes, it does. That's one of the attack surfaces. I was just reviewing the objectives before this, and there's a separate objective on all the different attack surfaces that you would pen test in the attack section. And so, not only is it covering, I mean, there's a whole section, as I mentioned before, on web apps, which, we didn't have to focus as much on them. They weren't like the problem as much as they are nowadays. But IoT is also one of them. And so when we speak about IoT, we're also talking about, embedded devices and pen testing embedded devices and things. There's a fellow who came to join us from Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, and they do a lot of sensor work on the F-18 Hornet, and they work on, trying to pen test, attack the Hornet. And infiltrate the systems. And one of the fascinating things is that he said it's all about embedded systems, which ultimately are just custom IoT devices. I found that fascinating. And so, yes, we cover that in great detail with the best in the world that helped us create it.
All right, well, really good to hear. And you heard it here directly from the gentleman who could tell you that, because Patrick is, as I just want to remind everybody, the product owner and manager for many of these certifications at CompTIA. So who better to tell you definitively what's going to be covered than the person who is ultimately overseeing those products and certifications. All right, so PVR, what is our next question? I think Matthew from our on-air page, if I can get that out, had a question about experience validation around certifications.
Yeah, he asks, for the certification tracks that align to experience in the field, is that validated at all, or is it just self-evident through the fact that you passed the exam?
It's self-evident through the fact that you have passed the exam. That was one of the things that we learned early on. It was that from some of the employers that we spoke with, the DoD as well, U.S. Department of Defense, they really wanted a cert that had hands-on with it, so that they can say, all right, if you pass this CompTIA cert, can you do the job? And do we have to validate your experience? That's one of the reasons why a lot of employers use CompTIA certs and why they're popular. It's because ultimately we're trying to do the one and done. You take that exam, you're ready for the job. And so that was the ultimate. That's the goal of what we're doing. And so unlike other exams, you have to show 2 years of employer experience. You do not have to do that with CompTIA certs. All of our prerequisites are recommended, not required.
All right, and that's also a really important thing to stress and remind you of. And, it is a very big distinction, because it's hard sometimes to validate, right, that experience in meaningful ways. And the exam, if it does that and becomes, as Patrick said, self-evident, is a great way to think about that. And the fact that CompTIA stands behind that by making it clear to employers that that is the expectation is really important for you to know when you're taking and putting those exams to work. It's PVR, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we have an interesting question from two people, at least I see it has two names associated with it. What do they want to know about how entry-level certifications, or rather certifications leading to entry-level jobs, may pair together?
Yeah, Siddhartha and Christian, both on the on-air page, asked similar questions, so we've kind of put them together here. So they ask, would Security Plus and CySA suffice for landing me entry-level security analyst jobs?
Yeah, you can probably get a SOC 1 job to start with if you don't have a bachelor degree. That's one of the things we have found is that you don't need a bachelor degree or to do well in IT. But some jobs are still requiring it, unfortunately. I think the last survey I found was about 55% of the jobs, this is, hot off the press, were requiring bachelor degrees for at least the job roles that I was looking at. And I can tell you, like 5 years ago, that would have been 75%. So 20% reduction in bachelor degree requirements over a 5-year period is staggering, considering it's always required a bachelor degree up to this point. So that's very good news for all of you. So what you've got to do is if you can get Security Plus, if you can get CySA Plus, and if you can get experience by doing these challenges and things, you may be able to get your foot in the door with a SOC 1 analyst job. Otherwise, what you'll have to do is try an apprenticeship, try to get experience as much as possible. The reason why we focus on the core certs is because cybersecurity, if you have the word cybersecurity in your job role, it probably is not the first job in your career. Most people throughout history have been hired from infrastructure into cybersecurity. That's the way it worked. That's what happens with me and my friends. We started in infrastructure. We were doing cybersecurity for decades until suddenly we were now, there was this cybersecurity department that was pulled out of the IT department as it became more important, but we were always merged before. So as cybersecurity popped out over the last 5 years, hiring is still occurring from the infrastructure side. And the infrastructure side is going to be where you're looking at both core and infrastructure. So you're looking at A+ folks, network administrators, security administrators. They're often hired into these higher level job roles. When you look at the security analyst job role that you were, sometimes a bachelor degree could get you straight into a SOC 2, but just so you know. But if you don't have a bachelor degree, it's going to be harder to do that.
It sounds like it's a mixed bag still, although as Patrick indicated, it is moving, potentially it's an interesting trend that it's moving away from necessarily exclusive or almost exclusive reliance on a college degree to indicate your ability to move up. But I think the message is loud and clear. You've heard it from Patrick and heard it throughout our discussion. Experience wins the day. And you have to have the experience along with the certifications in order to truly be able to move up and move through those ranks in your organization. So keep that in mind. All right, Patrick, I'm told we have time for one more question in this segment before we move to our overtime question and answer period. So our last question, PVR, correct me if I'm wrong, is coming from, of all places, Scotland. Very interesting, Cumberland. So something about rebadging, how rebadging works.
Yeah, we're all over the place today. India, the U.S., now Scotland. Mark asks, I have Security Plus and CYSA Plus, which expires in May of 2022. If I do CASP, does that rebadge one or both of those?
So it's definitely a Patrick question.
Yeah, if you go to our continuing education section on our website, we have a section that talks about it's a hierarchy of certifications. So if you earn a higher level certification on the CompTIA cybersecurity career pathway, it will renew all the certs underneath it. So if you renew CySA Plus, it will renew your Security Plus. That's really nice. That's really nice that we can do that, I think.
And in this case, Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong, PVR, but it's specifically asking about CAS Plus, which is considered to be the highest level of the certs. And if Mark achieves that, you're stating unequivocally, because it's the highest level cert, it will rebadge all the other ones, including CySA Plus and Security Plus, correct?
Exactly. You can apply the higher level cert rule to it. And thus CASP, same thing. It will recertify Pentest Plus, CYSA Plus, Security Plus,
Security Plus,
Plus,
et cetera,
and
all the way.
Plus. I mean,
so Mark, definitely the way to go. You get all of them rebadged if you get CASP Plus. Definitely the way to go.
Yeah, just start at the hardest one then, and that'll take care of it.
Just get them all. Absolutely.
All right. Well, folks, we want you to stay tuned as we're going to announce the winner of the CompTIA exam voucher in just a moment. If we couldn't get to your question during the webinar, don't worry. Adam and Patrick will be answering them in overtime, which is on the ITProTV on-air page after the webinar. I'll explain more about that in just a moment. All right, you can check out a free membership of ITProTV, no credit card required, with access to select courses and our daily live feed. You can also get a full personal membership that provides complete access to all the ITProTV courses with or without practice exams and virtual labs. If you're on a team, you'll want to check out the business page, which offers a tour of the Pro Portal used to maximize your team's investment in training. Don't forget to enter the promo code webinar30 when you sign up for an ITProTV membership to get 30% off the lifetime of your personal membership. All right, now for the winner of the exam voucher, let's take a look. We did a random number generator, and it is Siddhartha. And I don't know if I'm saying your name right, but I'm sure you don't care because you just won a free exam voucher from CompTIA. So congratulations. We'll reach out to you and get that over to you, so don't worry about having to put any information in the chat here. All right, well, we've run out of time here for this webinar, but we still have some more questions from you that we'd love to answer. So we're going to go into overtime on the ITProTV on-air page to continue answering those questions, but this is for ITProTV members only. Now, you can become a member today at no cost by signing up for a free membership now. One of our team members will put that link in the chat for you. It's quick and simple, so we'll take about a 5-minute break to give you some time to sign up, and we'll see you over there. But before that, Adam, any closing thoughts?
I just want to thank all of you for watching and listening to us today. Thank Patrick, of course, for all the great information he provided to us, and encourage all of you to remember that, as Patrick pointed out very clearly, it's about the experience you bring to the table when you're taking these exams, but also when you're putting them to work with your employer. So keep that in mind, keep practicing, and of course, always make sure you're working with, whether it's us here at ITProTV or any of the environments we talked about, but work with those areas where you can gain that experience. Patrick gave you a lot of really interesting ideas about how to do that, and it is the secret ingredient to your success.
All right, thank you, both of you, and we'll see you guys in overtime in just a few moments. See you there.
Thank you for joining us today. You will receive a link to a recording of the webinar delivered to your inbox. Remember that coupon code is webinar30. See you back here for the next ITProTV webinar.